Hello, everybody. Vicky here. I hope everybody's well. Um, as you can see, the little banner went up. I'm working on the One Basket at a Time series, and this is still basket number one. Now, it turns out that there was an awful lot of scraps in here. There were some other bits and pieces that we've already done one video on. So we're sorting out to see what's going to happen next. So what we've got here is we've got a glue page. It come from a novel. I have never read the author, and I wasn't sure what the content of her books were. So I decided that the safest thing to do would be to cover them all up. I said Diane Steele, maybe. No, that's not right. Danielle Steele, Daniels. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's like I said, it's a small paperback. So I've the three strips of coffee dyed paper that I've glued onto the front of it. They're just strips cut off when I was doing a journal. So me and my never throw anything out little self, I finished a couple of projects, and rather than doing the smart thing and either throwing out or sorting out at the time, I pop them into a basket. And like I was saying, they're all in plastic bags now, so I just get one plastic bag out and put it in the basket and work on it. So I was going to do collage. That's why I had those bits of paper out that I've put away. And then I decided that I'd like to do some, I think I'm using distress here, not the oxides, just the distress. I actually, to tell you the truth, forgot that I've got two little tins of those small inks. So I've got them out now on a rotation and I'm using them. So I'm just putting together some colours that I thought I might like. And I've got a little bit of paint, of ink left over, and me being me, I've grabbed, now what I've got there is I've got an envelope full of coffee, no, copy paper that my friend Celeste gave a really handy hint that when you're doing die cutting, if you put a piece of the copy paper on your die, it makes it easier to get the die off and get all the bits and pieces out of it. And so, of course, me being me, I've saved all those that I've used. So you never know when you're going to use something. So what I'm doing now is this is a stamp. It's anonymous crackle stamp. I didn't want it bold. I wanted it as a background. So that's why I'm just stamping off, second generation stamping, I think they call it. But basically, just I wanted a background that wasn't in your face. And I've already sorted out what I thought I'd do with it. Now, in this basket, to use up what I've got, I have been incorporating other things such as the copy paper die cut there, and you can see a little ballerina girl who I absolutely adore. I want to be her when I grow up, I think. She just looks so happy. So I'm just inking around. So this really probably, after I finish with it, could have gone in the bin. But I've already explained that even though I've got lots of new things now, I've always saved scraps and I've liked to be able to use everything right down, wasted away until there's virtually nothing left. I'm just going to go around the outside with gold. I think the gold with this colour, I really love the colour of them. There's a mustard, a pale yellow, and it's just really, I think it's really lovely. So I thought, well, the gold, and I think I'm using, no, that's gold there. I thought it might have been the old gold, but it's not. So I'm just going around the edges on it just to give it a little bit of definition to make it more interesting. So that's a glue page from an insignificant little paperback that was falling apart, and I've put down the die cut and I've put the little girl on there. So what I've got here is I've got a still oh, I can't think what it's called. Stabilo, maybe, I'm not sure. It's a soft lead, and I'm just putting a little bit of, well, floor ground, just something so that she's looks like she's grounded, so she's not floating in thin air, or just giving her a little bit of a, like I said, a floor for her to stand on. Um, and it's very, you get a lot of charcoal off that pen when you use it, and then I just use a wet one or a little bit of water on my finger just to spread it out a little bit, so it does actually look like the ground. And that's pretty much it. It's something as simple as that. And then that's a little bit of copy dyed paper and bits and pieces that really could have gone in the bin. But I do look upon my scraps as a challenge in the first instance. I think there will be some things in this basket that will get put in the bin. Like I said, when I finish projects, I don't do the smart thing and sort through the scraps and everything before I go on to the next project. I am trying to get better with that. Do a project, waste out the scraps and the bits and pieces that have been left over before I go on to the next project. But even if I start that, and I'm trying to do that now, I've got quite a backlog of bits and pieces and half finished projects, and goodness only knows what. So what I'm doing is I've put them all in bags. I open up my storage cupboard and I got a bag out. I didn't look at it. I've put it in the basket and I deal with it now. And if I don't know what to do with it, well, it would just have to go in the bin. So this is a leftover piece of scrapbooking paper. It was just plain, so I've gone through and stamped a little bit of a background onto it just to give it a little bit more interest. And I thought that the front cover of the first page of this notebook, I thought I'd just put like just an image on there to make it look a little bit more interesting. And I'm just inking around the sides so that when the image goes on, it's been inked. It just like I said, it just defines the edges. And it's a little flip notebook. Once again, the pages were in this basket, leftover strips from whatever it might have been that I was doing. And I thought that there was enough there to do a notebook, and it was big enough. Now that yellow and pink that you can see that I've used to line the inside, you can just see poking out there to the left, I think it's spun sugar, maybe, I'm not quite sure what it is, but I've used two of those little distress inks, and I've like created a page. It was white, it was just an unassuming piece of white paper, so I did the oxide, dipped into the oxide to get the colour on the paper, and I think it just looks quite pretty rather than a plain white. Now the pages in this notebook are white, so on the back of it, up the top, you can see I've put a bit of washi tape across the fold. It's not a particularly thick scrapbooking page, so I've put a piece of washi tape across there just to strengthen that fold, and then I had bits of paper, so I thought that little polka dot one, I think it is, little dotted one, I've made a little pocket on the back for it. I'm just inking it before we put it down, just to give the notebook a little bit more interest, and also a way to use up those bits that are floating around in the basket. And the pocket that I'm using, that was the size of that piece of paper. So really, it was limited in what I could do with it. So I thought, well, why not put a little pocket on the back of the notebook? Just gluing it now, putting the glue on. I hope everybody's well. I haven't even had a proper hello, how are you? Just gone straight into doing the video. Like I said, I hope you're all well. We're not doing too bad in this house. I've just done a video and put it up. So I'm trying to think about what I spoke so that I don't repeat myself. Graham and I have decided, like we've been in this house for nearly 5 years, and we come from a couple of units that we gutted, and we both inside and outside and did total makeovers of them. Basically, some of the walls came out in there as well. So it was and we were exhausted by the time we moved into here because we weren't ever going to move again. That's why we set our unit up in our investment unit, and we were quite happy. Well, we weren't happy as it turned out, but we did them with the plans that we were never going to move. So of course we did move. So when we moved in here, we sort of like just took a breath. I've put washi tape down the bottom as well for the same reason. I'm just decorating the pocket. So this is a lovely little home that we live in, and it really, there's nothing that needed to be done as such, but it needs Vic and Graham touches. We've always been pretty keen gardeners, and the gardens here were bare. The people that we bought the house off, I'm pretty well sure that they weren't gardeners. There were some empty garden beds, and yeah. So after nearly 5 years, we did do a little bit of planting along the outside back fences, raised garden bed out there, and we've got a raised vegetable garden area, and we did some planting there, but we let marshmallow weed take over. So when we had to pull it out, what we planted, a lot of it died, and we just had to pull it out to get rid of the marshmallow weeds. So we went off to the nursery on Friday, then Saturday and Sunday and Monday, so 3 days, we did planting. Now when I say we, it's a little bit of the royal we. I was able to fuss and repot and do some pot plants, Graham lifting them up and helping me with the heavy stuff, and Graham did the vegetable garden, and I sort of did some, while I was out the back, I did some coffee dyeing. I did some more manila folders with the pattern on them, and I did tags with the pattern on as well. So you can only do one layer at a time with them. So in between, when I had to have a bit of a spell from fiddling with the garden, I sat perched on my stool out there and did a little bit. So I was able over the couple of days to do that while Graham did all the heavy working. And out the front, we've had a bare garden, which every time we've looked at it, we've been quite embarrassed by it. So we finally got round to getting it all planted, and I'm hoping that, we'll do everything we can to grow the shrubs up. They're all fragrant, and they're all flowering. So as is the back with the plants that we've put out there. So we should have some beautiful smells in the near future from the plantings that we've done. And I think it did me the world of good to just get out of the craft room. I do love it, and I didn't feel like I needed to, but I'm very lucky to be in a position where I spend the majority of my life in my room, in my craft room, and Graham likewise with his workshop out the back. but I think sometimes I spend a little bit too much time in there. So just getting outside and getting some plantings done and being able to do a little bit really helped my mental health, I think. Um, like I said in the last video, I've got a few little struggles at the moment, but nothing that will stop me from doing my creating. So anyway, I'm just making a little tag now to put in that pocket that we did. And that little bit of paper that I've put down there is just an offcut from the focal point that I put on the front page of the pages in the notebook. So kind of like using as much as I can. Now I didn't want to put any sort of top on this tag that was going to be lumpy, because obviously it's a little notebook and we want to be writing in it, and we would be writing, and if I put an eyelet or something like that in there, it would be a nuisance every time we tried to write. So I'm just putting a little tab up the top just so that there's something there, just because there was a little bit of paper left over, and why not, she says. So Graham and I are feeling quite pleased with ourselves and congratulating ourselves. We had an issue with our pool that has taken near on 12 months to get resolved, trying to get people to work and then being able to get what's needed to get things done is an absolute nightmare. And I guess it's sort of like still the aftermath of the virus and manufacturing, and like we're still waiting for one more thing to come, and it just breaks your spirit. Really, it's just so frustrating. I'm just putting a little acetate sticker on there. I do love them. I really do. I kind of probably went a little bit crazy and got lots of them, but you know, to have them there to use is really, really good. And you just saw my hand, so you probably figure that looking at that, it has been a little bit of a problem of late, my hands, but I think I'm doing pretty good here. So I'm just putting a little word on there, just because I'm making something out of scraps. It doesn't mean to say that we don't, like we do still need to put a little bit of love into what we're doing, I think. Yeah. So Graham and I are wanting to do some other things to the house and just change things. And I'm like we're ready to go, but I'm well, probably anxious. I tend to suffer from anxiety these days. That, like, I want to get the hot water service disconnected and put a solar hot water service up on the roof. And I'm like, what happens if we get halfway through and they say, oh, well, we haven't got part number X, Y, and Z, and we can't finish the job until it comes in, and it ends up a bit like the way the pool's gone for us. We'll have no hot water. And I kind of like use the hot water a lot to get my bones going when they're really stiff, or if I'm in a lot of pain. I do get into the pool for that as pain management. Plus, I just love the water, but the hot water helps me immensely. So we're sort of like a little bit at odds at the moment. We really want to get things done, but the, the way things are going out there, and we want to get the bathroom renovated once again. What do we do if we get it all gutted and ready to go and we get held up because of one little thing? So it's all a bit of a worry, I guess. I suppose in the big scheme, they're not real big issues. It's something that can be managed, but it seems to be across the board at the moment. I think everybody sort of like was so stressed out and hit the ground running, and lots of people were running on anxiety and stress, and because they weren't able to work and trying to keep businesses going and all that sort of thing. I can't blame tradies for, like, they book in a job to do for a week. They don't allow extra time for something to go wrong and come back to finish a job off. They've already got 2 or 3 more jobs booked. So I don't know why I'm going on about that. Probably all a bit boring. I'm just mindful that I've already done a voiceover. Like I was saying, I'd prefer not to do voiceovers, but the lads tend to be a little bit naughty. So, and it's windy at the moment, September winds, and that seems to have Cody on high alert. But it's now really very, very late at night, and they're asleep. The little ones, I'm sitting up on my bed to tell you the truth, doing this, and Louis in underneath the blankets, and Cody's, he's the sentinel at the door, keeping everybody away. The guard dog. So they're nice and quiet. So I thought, well, why not? Now I'm just putting on a couple of circles here as closures. I quite like doing them this way, and because it's a notebook and you open it up, rather than opening up and seeing the prongs from the brad, I had enough of that paper to be able to cut out a couple of little circles and stick them over the brads on the inside, so the circles blend in a lot better than what just those two brads would. I kind of like to do that. I don't really like leaving. It's sort of like, to me, it looks a little bit unfinished. And so I've got a little bit ahead of myself. I think I'm looking around trying to find where I've put them. I've got a little flower there that I've decided that I'm going to put on the front of it. I am enjoying all the little stickers and different things that you can buy. I have been caught a couple of times where I have bought some stuff that is a complete knockoff of somebody else's intellectual property. I was quite cross with myself. But I've done it, so I've got them, so I will use them. The whole debate is if you do end up buying something that is somebody else's property, to not use it. Well, I'm sort of like, talked about it with my friend and we discussed it, and it's kind of like, well, let's not promote it from where it came from, and just use them. Chalk it down to experience and being a little bit more careful. I have been doing some die cuts and I've got them listed in our shop. When I realised the irony of it, that you can buy lots of different things from whatever Asian site is your preference. But I will say that what I do is done on a lesser scale, and the papers that I use are of very high quality. So I'd like to think that the product that I'm selling on, well, no, I don't like to, I know, because both Graham and I go to great lengths to make sure that what we put up for sale is the very best that we can do. So if you'd like to pop over to my shop and have a look and see what's there, you might find something that you would like. So here I am, I'm just putting those little circles on there now. You can see that I've tried to match the colour with where it's at. So this is a little notebook made out of scraps that I think any sane person probably would have just popped in the bin and gone on to the next thing. I tend to I get caught up in making things with scraps, and I've got lots and lots of ideas and videos lined up to share with you, but I seem to spend a lot of time doing this sort of thing, which is fine. It's what I do. It's what I've always done, and it's what gives me great pleasure. And like I was saying, things are a little bit tough at the moment. I'm in my downward spiral with my health until October when I come out of hospital again. So I tend to start playing with scraps where I can just have a look at something, think about it, and go from there. And it's not something big that I have to try and concentrate and keep going. Um, and it's just lots of fun, really. I guess it gives me just that sense of, oh wow, look what I've done out of what I could have just thrown out. So I guess it's a sense of satisfaction. And it's lots of fun to try and think about what you're going to do with things. So there we've got a really nice little substantial notebook, and I'm really, really pleased with it. And I'm happy with my little journaling card with my ballerina on it. Makes me, when I see that, I think of my friend when she was younger. She was a ballet dancer, so I guess it just makes me think of her and smile. And here we are in just, I don't know why it come into my mind, but it's like September. Where has the year gone? It's like you blink and it's over. But even young ones now are saying that it just goes. Now these tags, the strips, they're all strips of paper, and that paper was left over from a journal that I made for a very dear friend. Her name is Tanya, and like the strips you can see, I think the widest ones would have been about 1/2 inch, and I can't, just from trimming them off to be the size that I wanted them to be. But I'm making my own covers these days. I'm not using books, so I'm making them the size of a copy of a photocopy page, that we do the coffee dyeing with. That way I don't have strips left over, trying to reduce it. Now, what I've got here is I'm also using some Glad Bake to do my gluing on because I was getting too many of the glue book pages and I thought I just need to slow up on them for a little while. So I've gone through some of my paper pads, and I've decided what we're going to get coffee dyed to use as backings. And you know how they always have the journaling cards with sentiments on it. So I've as I've been going through the paper packs, I've been taking out the journaling cards, the tags, and that sort of thing. So I'm going through here, and I'm backing them with the coffee dyed papers, and I'm just trimming them all down now. These are particularly beautiful, these four, and they're all of these ones that I've got here, I believe, are Casecraft. And like I said, I don't know about what you girls do, but I tend to forget about using the ephemera that they have at the backs of the book. Or there's so much of it, I just can't use it in one project. So I'm sewing around. I'm not quite sure where this little tag come from, and I don't even know why I bothered with it, to tell you the truth, because it's a little bit unassuming, isn't it? But anyway, all those cards that you saw, I bet there's dozens of them. I don't know how many of them there are. There's a huge number. And like I said, I've backed them on the back, and then I've gone around and I've sewn all of them. So that was a big job. Now, with with those, just not sure what I'm going to be doing here. Okay, so these are book plates. I'm going to cut those on the laser, and I will be putting them in little packs to go into our shop, just plain for you to decorate. And I will do a few embossed ones as well. Now, what I've done with these papers, because it was quite loud, the papers, I've gessoed over, just got a foam dobber, and I've just gone over and I've put the gesso on it just to push the background, just to push it back a little bit so that a focal point or whatever I was doing would stand out. So I opted for the Tim Holtz people on these. One, I've got a stack of them and I haven't been using them. So it didn't come out of the basket, but it is a use what we've got. So I feel that it fits the remit of what we're doing. And then I've had those larger eyelets for quite some time, and they just happened to be navy. So there you had it. And I've got a feeling that I might have had these in the first video, I'm not sure. But I can remember, I'm just trying to think that I've been using strips of leftover, this is homespun, the bits of fabric that's offcuts from when I do the fabric journals. I've been keeping them and I've been using them as the fibre in top of the tags. But I find using the fabric, it's quite bulky by the time you sort of like loop it through and have it all done. So I've taken to just sewing across the tops of the fibre of the calico, and that holds it in place, and it just means that it doesn't create that bulk or that knot um, and lump, so that when you're journaling you don't have to worry quite as much. I mean, obviously it's still a little bit lumpy, but not to the extent that it would be. So I'm just going through and doing that now. And I really did think that the 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 Tim Holtz people really did work well with these tags. And here's more of those journaling cards that I was talking about. And what I've done, just to give them a little bit of an extra lift, I've gone round and I've inked them all. So they're backed, they've been sewn, they've been inked, and I'm just putting some imitation gold leaf around them just to make them look a little bit more interesting. There's a really good chance that some of these are going to pop up in the shop to be sold, because there's just going to be far too many for me to use, and I would like to share them with others, so that if you're looking for some journaling cards that are already made that fit the theme or the colour scheme of what you're doing, you can pop over and you can grab some ready made and they're good to go. There's really nothing else you need to do with them, unless you want to put a little something on it extra before you put it in. So there they all are there. That's this lot. I'm not sure if there's some others that I've done, but I'm just sorting these out now. I'm going through and having a look to see what needs some sort of focal point on the front of them. So there's a few there that I think look a little bit plain. So I've separated them. I think it's just the three of them that I decided needed something a little bit extra to put on them. And they really have come up quite pretty, haven't they? So I've just got little, once again, little tiny scraps of the calico strip that I had that I'm just putting down because we can use it up, and why not? Now I've been trying really hard to keep my workspace a little bit less cluttered. I did notice when I watched back a couple of my videos a few weeks ago that I have so much around me and I make such a mess that I found it difficult to keep focused on what I was doing because it was all cluttered up. So one of the ways I'm trying to do that is by having a sheet of paper or something under me. One, it protects my surface, but it also is like it reminds me that I want a little exclusion zone around what I'm doing. And the other thing too is when you're doing embellishing and when you're layering, um, it's actually the more you've got could end up, there is such a thing as too much. I find that there is just so many things around me, I can't really see anything because, like you can't see that one thing because all you can see is the bulk and the different things that are around me. So I am trying, moving forward, to make a conscious effort to just try and keep things a little bit less congested and messy. So these little, I don't know what you call them, little figures, little dolls, I don't know. I really think they're very cute. So I thought I'd better start using them. I'm these days, I'm all for trying to use what I've got. And I've reduced the amount of things that I've been buying so that I just I tend to get a little bit carried away sometimes. And I go back to what I was saying, you can have too much stuff. So just a little warning for everybody who is starting out or is fairly new. You don't need to have huge amounts of things. And I'm afraid my hand's looking a little bit ugly. I apologise for the makeshift bandage that Graham put on my hand. The knuckle that last knuckle on the finger, those two knuckles there are really quite large and a bit deformed. And I don't know whether or not I don't realise that they're as big as what they are now, but I am constantly whacking that poor knuckle, and it hurts when I do it. But I've basically got a perpetual sore that's on there, and it just wanted to continue to bleed. So Graham did a little running repair for me. So it doesn't look the best, I'm sorry, but it needs must, I guess. So with these tags and with those book plates, I don't know how many times they're going to pop up in how many different sessions. I've gone through that basket quite a few times, and it turns out that I have missed things. So instead of doing all of the tags together, I've ended up doing them sort of like a bit in a relay. And when I find the next, like you'd think because it's just in a basket and contained, I'd be able to find them and do them all at once. But that's okay. That's okay. I think I've done the series pretty much all the same. I did do one you can see up in the right there, where I've put some planets on there, and I wasn't overly fond of them, and that's when I went to the the dolls, the Tim Holtz dolls. So you just saw there's a whole stack more of those tags. I just kept making tags until I ran out of that paper. You think I would have gone, you know what, half a dozen of them's enough. I think we might just put that paper in the bin now. But no, I just kept going. Graham cuts the tags out for me out of manila folders on the laser. So I have a very cheap source, and I don't think I'm ever going to run out of them. And so I just asked Graham to do some for me, and off he goes. Now, these are mini tags, pardon me, and I believe they came out of a Kaiser paper stack. Just excuse me for a minute. Sorry, my voice is getting a little bit croaky. So I think these are around, I don't know, maybe 3 inches by 1 1/4 by the look of it. I'm just trying to. So they're only little, those tags. So I'm not. I didn't have to back them because they had, I think, ledge paper on the back of it, and they look fine the way they are. So what I thought they would be good for is like a dangle, when you put a dangle. But before I thought of that, I went through and put eyelets and calico fibre through the top of them. So they'll look quite nice in a little tuck spot somewhere. They'll get used up. And once again, you will more than likely see some of them in our shop, because as you can see, I have a huge amount of journaling cards, tags, and little tags, and this is just the beginning. I dread to think how many more cards and tags I've got, so it will be a pleasure to be able to pass them on to anyone who would like to buy them. And they, like I said, it's always good to have some ready-made ephemera all ready to go. Now I'm just going around doing all the gold. Gosh, I don't know that we've been doing much of anything else other than the gardens, and yeah, Graham and I are just happy to be at home these days. Like, we go up to the theatre regularly for dinner and go to the theatre, and that just about's enough for me. I can do the majority of my shopping online. I've never been a shopper or one to walk around the shops and do a little bit of window shopping, and I don't understand the concept of window shopping, to tell you the truth. It's like you either need something or you don't, but walking around the shops having a look at stuff that you know you're not going to buy, I don't know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think I'd rather go to the park, or once upon a time go for a bit of a hike, a walk through a national park or such. But no. But having said that, that's what we're doing tomorrow. I got notice to say that I have to get my eyes tested. So that's what we did. We went to the movies. And I thought, well, since we're going to be at the cinema, which is in the big shopping centre, there were some things that I needed and pretty much couldn't get a single thing. Pretty much couldn't get anything that I wanted. So we saw the movie. What was it called? Oppenheimer? Maybe it was about the scientists that created the bombs for World War Two. The beginning of a new era, really, wasn't it? So that was really quite interesting, the way that all came about. It was a 3-hour long movie, which is quite unusual these days, but it was really good. And then we had dinner after we saw the movie and come on home. So we did do that, but the bits and bobs that I wanted to get, I couldn't get. And it was only really basic stuff. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary, really. So I've got my little list, and I'm hoping that we're going to a smaller centre tomorrow, where the place is that I get my eyes seen to. And I'm hoping because it's smaller it won't be as difficult and I'll be able to pick up the bits that I want. But I went to a Kmart, and the Kmart that I go to is really, it's really quite hopeless, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's full. It's a huge shop full of lots and lots of stuff. But I'd have to say that every time I go there, I come away very disappointed because they didn't have what I want. So it's either a weirdly stocked shop or I'm the weird one, and I want stuff that nobody else wants. But anyway, my tale of woe. So hopefully tomorrow we'll go and we'll get my eyes done and do some, yeah, to get some things off the list. We might have lunch while we're out. Now all these little tags, I've done the same thing with them up the top. I've gone through and I've sewn across all of them. So you've got to give me credit for persistence. Once I get started, I just keep going. The mass making concept, I think, was created for me. Oh, I'm just looking at Louis here. He must have got a little bit hot. He's so cute. He's just sort of like squirmed his way up. He's laying on his side and he's stretched out. And from his front legs up, he's out, laying on the bed. Not quite sure where he thinks Graham's going to fit when he comes to bed. And then the rest of him's underneath the blanket. Just looks like a little kitty that's been put to bed. Oh, it's sad, isn't it? I'm just going through trying to just personalise these little tags a bit. Put a little bit of the gold leaf on them. Not a real lot. And I don't think I did anything. They had those, like the strengthening rings. They've got a name, I just can't think of it. And that's just printed on. It's not a reinforcer, a whole reinforcer. So I thought, well, it's not really going to be a stress point. So I've just put the calico through the hole and sewn it up. So I can't see it being ripped off. Like I said, it won't be a hole like a stress point. And I think I've gone through on some of those little tags and I've popped one of the little figures on them. So just a couple of them that were a little bit blank. And now I'm coming to the end of this session with this basket, but I haven't actually finished the basket. There will be at least one more session on using, one basket at a time. So because there wasn't really a proper ending, what I've done is I've just put some photos on the end of it so that you can get a look at what we've been working on. So I will say goodbye for now. I hope that you are well, stay safe, be kind to yourself and be kind to the person standing next to you. I'll just say that I did, I don't know, four or five 12 by 12 collages from there as well. So for now, take care and bye-bye.